Did you know that the movie industry is on tap to make about $6 billion this year in revenue? Which sounds like everything's going well, right? However, if you compare this to the revenue numbers from 2019, you will be shocked. In 2019, the film industry took in, now wait for it, $11.3 billion in revenue. That's right, the film industry hasn't been doing so well over the last couple of years. I know we can all point to the pandemic for some of these numbers, but I think there's actually something deeper going on. Now, here are 4 factors that I feel, especially as a screenwriter and former movie critic, that is causing Hollywood to tank. Number 1, the Marvel glut. I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick of watching superhero movie after superhero movie. It sort of reminds me of the zombie phase that we all went through right before the superhero phase. Now, interesting enough, in 2019, this was, I believe, the height of the Marvel movies, with Endgames raking in $859 million. Captain Marvel, can you believe that stinker, got $426 million? Really? I can't believe I went to watch that movie. And finally, Spider-Man Far From Home was $390 million. Something to note is that there was not all of these D+ shows that were adding to the library of films and shows you needed to see in order to watch or enjoy any of these movies, or even to understand what was going on. Or more importantly, these shows featured diluted writing, inept concepts, and bland characters. And that's just D+. On the flip side, I would argue Captain Marvel was the beginning of the gluttony of poor writing we would begin to experience on the movie side, and for the cinematic universe in general. What has this terrible writing and smorgasbord of talentless shows gotten us? Let's take a look at this year's numbers, 2022. Black Panther Forever raked in $421 million. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, $411 million. Thor, Love and Thunder, $343 million. That's a drop of $500 million, and probably even more because the cost of filmmaking has gone up, not down. Now, to add to the superhero problem, we didn't even talk about the DC comic book movies. They also had films like Black Adam and Batman, which some might argue was the reason that Marvel didn't make so much this year. I feel it's the opposite, though. There are so many movies about superheroes, a genre that has been done to death. How many origin stories, bland storylines, ridiculous stories, excuses for villains, and just dull characters do they think that we will put up with? Number 2, this ties into my second point of why the box office has been taking a nosedive over the last couple of years: bland characters. A wise man once told me that characters create stories. Have a bland character and you will have a bland story. And Hollywood has been really good at perfecting bland characters. Bland characters are characters that don't grow or change. And without this change, we as an audience can't empathize with our protagonists. We can't grow with them on their journeys. And to be honest, we tend to lose interest in the plot and quote-unquote story. Now, believe it or not, I feel Hollywood is actually regressing to the first generation of Hollywood films. This is when Hollywood writers for the silent film era were making scenarios. They were making up what would happen on the screen and let it play out. Everything was in generalities. You had a cowboy saving a girl from the mustache-twirling villain. They did this for good reason, because there was no sound. They were still figuring out the media and how people would react to this media. They didn't have 100 years of film to look back on. Hollywood today has regressed to the scenario type of writing. Some movies like James Bond's are basically scenario-type movies, but we are so used to who James Bond is that it doesn't bug us or put us off on the character. There's also books about James Bond, which gives us better context. I think a lot of times the movies are a little sloppier on character because of the books, and I think that's just lazy writing, but I could see why some writers do that. Number 3, originality. How many of the top 10 movies were not a derivative product this year of 2022? 1. Black Adam. But you could even argue that that was from a comic book, so it still counts as a derivative product. This isn't a trend with 2022. You have to go back to 2016 to have 3 movies in the top 10 that were not sequels, prequels, or cinematic universe movies. If you were curious, there was Zootopia, Sing, and Moana. If you want to go for half of the top 10, you have to go all the way back to 2006. Hollywood's rationale for this is because of the cost of movies keeps going up. They need to have a devoted fan base or they will not make their money back, is the argument. How about you make a decent story, which means you have an interesting and intriguing character? How about you don't recycle the same boring, toneless, and trope-filled garbage that you've been shoving down our throats for the last decade or two? Yeah, I'm passionate about this because I got to watch a lot of bad movies as a movie critic. There were many times I was in for a 2-hour snore fest. I personally think most writers should have to be a film critic for at least 2 years so that they know what not to write. Number 4, agenda. Now, you don't have to go too far on YouTube to find videos about the way that Hollywood has been cramming their agenda down their viewers' gullets. Now, don't get me wrong. Movies have themes and should have messages about the filmmaker's take on things. However, make that part of the story. Don't use it as a baseball bat and clobber me with the message. Star Trek is a franchise. Current series are excluded. Picard have done a good job of looking at political and social issues through the lens of a story arc. Again, this gets back to the writers. It seems to me that many of the Hollywood writers have gotten lazy about working in their themes and would rather just tell you in open dialogue what the message is. If you want a propaganda speech, I will listen to my favorite political party. I don't need to have this in my entertainment. Where are the movies with biting social commentary that shows us what it looks like? Remember, guys and gals, that is what movies are about, showing us what's happening, not telling us through exposition. So what can Hollywood do to turn the ship around? Pretty easy. Hire some better writers who are writing fresh, original material. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with the industry. I honestly don't care so much about the directors and actors anymore, because if the story sucks, the film is going to suck. One of the big problems in Hollywood and also in our society is, why don't we highlight more of the writers? They really are our bread and butter. Hollywood, why are they so far behind in the credits? Blink, and you'll probably miss them. Us as the general public should be able to name 2 or 3 favorite writers just as easily as we're able to name our favorite directors and actors. You might be thinking, Screenwriting Mentor, it can't be that bad. Have you seen The Ring of Power? Have you seen Thor, Love and Thunder? Folks, this is bad writing, and it just needs to stop. Hollywood, as well as us the public, need to stop empowering this kind of lazy, uninspired writing. As a screenwriter, I would add we need to start creating better stories and characters. And here's the hard part. What stories do you have inside of you? What stories could you be telling and should be telling? As much fun as it is to dump on the current Hollywood system, the only way we are ever going to get anywhere is if people begin to write and create. So this new year, I'd encourage you to write your first script. And this is why I made it my mission to help 10,000 screenwriters to find the software that is going to help change their lives in their writing. So come join me and take a look to find that software, which helps to unlock your imagination and allows you to help write that next original blockbuster. Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Paul from Screenwriting Mentor. I make videos about screenwriting and also videos about screenwriting software. And I always do my best to answer questions about the industry as well as the screenwriter software. If this is the content you would find helpful, feel free to hit the subscribe button below. If you have questions about screenwriting at all, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Until my next video, write well and live well.